What's up, everybody, and welcome to Assemble XP. I'm one of your hosts, Matt. Joining me, as always, is the Dark Knight of Xbox himself, Court. Court, you big old daddy man. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, buddy.
We're on our tryptophan kick right now.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And joining us, we're very excited today. We have the InsipidGhost himself, Luke. Xbox expansion pass himself. Yay, Luke. What's up, buddy?
Hello, gentlemen. Hello. I am ecstatic to be with you guys. Two of my favorite people came together to start making a podcast, making me a guest on this episode. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you guys for inviting me. This is exciting. Hello.
Thank you.
We're happy
You're
to have
very
you.
Xboxed out. He's got the 117. He's got the green in the background. Well done. Well done. And you can actually see the Xbox OG background, which is nice.
Yeah, that's true. I was playing a bit of Alan Wake Remastered earlier, and the classic background is up there, which is awesome. And the 117, this shirt is brand new. It's a Season Gaming shirt. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Season Gaming, but they kind of host the website that also hosts the Cast Co-op show that I'm a part of as well. But Ainsley Bowden and the guys over there are awesome, and they were very proud of this shirt. So I snagged one, and I gotta admit, it's pretty great.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Chief on the back, it's pretty dope.
Now, Luke, are you getting we did a show the other day on a court, but are you getting like the 20th anniversary everything for Xbox? Are you going to get the controller?
Well, I'm not going to get the controller. Well, hold on. There's a 20th anniversary controller that is just a standard Series X controller. I'm not getting that. I did get the Halo Master Chief Elite 2 controller.
Ooh,
I did get that one. I could not financially justify getting another Series X, particularly when other people are out there unable to even find a box. So I didn't do that. But I did get, and I will show you.
Oh God, what are you pulling out?
This is the 20th anniversary Halo pillow.
Wow, that's a thing. That's real?
It's real. So I needed a pillow because I have this great Star Wars one that my wife got me when we first started dating. And it's just, it's had a whole lot of me sleeping on it, the dog sleeping on it. It's fading. And it was like, well, let me just check the Xbox store. And surely that was there. So I've gotten quite a bit of anniversary gear either on the way or set to arrive over the next few weeks for sure. Everything from the Halo Infinite art book to 20th anniversary merch. I went a little all out and a little crazy. Happy birthday, Merry Christmas. And I'm sure I need a few more holidays to justify what I have spent.
Yeah, no kidding. Jeez, I love it. That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay, I definitely need to get a pillow then, because I do not have.
I couldn't get the Series 2 Halo. I've tried. I was on vacation with bad internet, and I was texting Matt just like, this is not fair. Like, it was in my cart, it's out. And then as soon as it hits again, I put it in my cart. It's bad. It's gone. But I do have an unhealthy habit of collecting Series X controllers. So I did get the controller. I also have the Volt. I also have the Aqua Shift. The Aqua Shift is my favorite by far with the grips in the back there.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm going to have no choice that when Halo Infinite finally drops for Christmas, I'm going to be like, so I need an Elite just to play Halo, and that's it? Because it'll be the only shooter that I'm really playing.
I find that when it comes to controllers, I love having them for display, but I've gotten away from doing that. And it's now a matter of I want it for the right purpose. So my Master Chief Elite 2 is going to be alongside my Elite 2 that I have now, and those will be my two controllers that I rotate between.
So you're saying you'd be gaming very elite?
Yes, that's what I tell myself. I say, as I get older, I need every advantage I can get because I am not as good as
my hands are too just destroyed and swollen all the time.
Before you came on, Luke, we were just both saying, I'm like, well, we should play some co-op on Far Cry. And I'm like, well, yeah, but full disclosure, I'm playing on easy. He's like, so am I.
Yeah.
Like,
nice.
If
that's
the
called
game has
they call it baby mode. That's daddy mode.
Yeah,
that's
like,
what that is.
I don't got time to play it on hard. Like, I was bad, but always talks about Bloodborne. I'm like, that's a no here. That sounds terrible. It's great for anybody who loves that. Just that's a no for me.
I love when it's an option. So like I'm playing Hot Wheels Unleashed right now. I'm loving that game on easy, just having a good old time jumping in, playing some tracks and jumping out. When it's an option and you don't have a lot of achievements gated behind things or progress gated behind difficulty, I love when easy mode is an option because sometimes I don't want to stress it. Other times with like Halo, I want to play that thing on legendary solo at some point in the game's history. But as long as I'm not required to, and if it's a status symbol or like Bloodborne or whatnot, man, that's not why I play games. Which is awesome when people do play that, but that's not why I play. Not for me anyway.
I always use the excuse that I grew up with the NES, and I'm like, you know what? I've played some hard games. I've got my scars. I'm good. I only get like, and this sounds like complaining, but I only get like an hour, maybe 2 hours that I can squeeze in to play some games. Like last night I was playing with you and I'm like, it's 10 o'clock. I'm like, I got to go to bed. Like I'm looking at what time I have to get up and I'm like, I got to go to bed. So I'm like, I have to pick and choose. And when I love when like Ubisoft is one of my favorites for, it doesn't just say easy, it says story mode. And it's like, oh, that's better than easy. It's easier than easy. I'll take that mode.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say that there are a lot of games that I enjoy most because they offer that mode for sure. And I take no shame in telling anybody that. Enjoy the way you want to play, where you want to play, how you want to play. And sometimes for me, that is straight baby mode, and I'm fine with it.
100%. Video games are for what you want when you want.
Now Matt's over there like, no, it's not how I roll.
Oh, it's 1,000% how I roll because I'm the same as Court, where I'm like, I've been playing Far Cry the last few nights. And it's turned into a late night for me, which late night means it's 11:30. And I'm like, oh, I'm hurting. And it's a long weekend. There's a lot going on. So I'm like, I got to keep going. Even today, Court, I snuck off like 2 hours. Said to my wife, I'm like, I want to go. I asked permission. Can I go get some time to go relax right now? Go play some games. Cranked out 2 hours of Far Cry.
I was going to leave the group. And then when we got into that bar, full disclosure, we were playing Back 4 Blood. We'll talk about it later. But when we got into that bar and the jukebox went on, I'm like, yeah, I got to stick around. I'm like, all right, whatever, fine. All right. I'm like, because it was like just after 9:30. I'm like, all right, no, I can do this. I can do this.
Focus. That's awesome.
Well, I woke up at
struggling at 1 or 2 points because we didn't stay too late after you, but we did go a little bit longer and it was fun. But yeah, as the age gets there, after 10 o'clock, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
Well, it was funny because I said I was going to leave and Luke's buddies were just like, oh, no, it's okay. He does that too.
True. It's true. I do.
All right. Well, Luke, why don't you, you don't need an introduction to us. We don't need one for you. Sorry. Why don't you tell our listeners, and honestly, if they don't know, well, that's on them, but why don't you tell them a little bit about your podcast? Plural.
Sure. I host the Xbox Expansion Pass, which is a solo show that discusses the goings-on of the game industry, the news of the games industry, as it particularly pertains to the Xbox ecosystem. So if there's relevant PlayStation news, I will bring it up in the context of how it might impact Xbox. Or, if something's going on in the greater ecosystems of gaming, how might that impact the communities within Xbox? So that's how the approach I tend to take with XEP. And I often try to bring on guests from around the gaming industry, from developers to actors to equality advocates, to kind of help expand our knowledge on their side of the gaming industry and what it is they see and do. And that's something that I take the most pride in and the most joy in, is getting to interview people. I really love asking questions. I love hearing the answers and kind of delving down beyond the surface level of things. And so that's my goal with XEP. It's a solo show. I host it nearly every week. Tomorrow is the 2-year anniversary of XEP, which is cool, but it feels a little silly to celebrate because I just crossed episode 100 and I'm on like episode 103. So you can't really have two back-to-back milestones there, but it is really cool, and it's something I take great pride in and really enjoy. And so if anybody hasn't checked it out, I would love it if you guys did check it out. If it's your speed, something that you enjoy, stick around, and if not, no harm, no foul. Appreciate you looking at it.
Well, you'd almost have to celebrate episode 117 just for the heck of it. I think that's like the next milestone. You're like, it's the super duper Halo episode.
One of the things I've noticed is milestones matter a lot to the audience, and they really want like something big every time. And in my end, where I'm like trying to make it week to week, making content, making it through work, trying to eat dinner every night and not pass out trying to play Back for Blood with my buddy Court, I forget to plan ahead sometimes, and those milestone or big events will sneak up on me. I don't know who I would have on to celebrate episode 117. It had to be someone from the Halo arenas there. And I don't know.
I'm going to Fan Expo, and the voice of Master Chief will be there. I can just be like, hey, so I need you to do this thing. I'm going to not pay for your autograph, but I'm going to need you to go on a podcast.
I'm not going to pay you.
We're going to the Halo Championships in December. In Raleigh, North Carolina. Is that what you mean?
No, Fan Expo is in Canada. It's like Comic-Con.
Okay.
And it's in Toronto. Probably the only place that anybody in the US knows. They're definitely like, they know Toronto. That's that place. Toronto, Montreal, maybe is like the two. But yeah, it's in Toronto, and they have, I know the voice of Master Chief will be there, and the voice of Mario from the N64 Mario will be there as well.
Very cool.
So I don't usually fan out. I'm like, oh, I need a voicemail. I just, you know what? I'll pay the $20, whatever it costs. Just leave a voicemail on so that when people call, it's Master Chief on the other line. It's just way better.
Yeah. I spent that money on Cameo. It was worth it.
You do what you got to do.
That's right.
Well, Luke, I've been on your show. I've had you on too. We've been doing this for a while now, but congrats on the 100 episodes. Like, that's awesome. And what's really been great about your show the whole time, like ever since I've listened to it, probably for the first couple of episodes, when you first started, I love that it's always like you have different developers on. And I always, if people have not listened to Luke's show, like, you need to, because it's well crafted, it's thought out, it's planned, it's got great structure and flow. That's what I always love every single week when I'm listening, is that, and it's different guests, and it's usually within the realm of different developers coming on to speak about different games and different topics. But yeah, it's just been, it's great show, and congrats again. Yeah. 100 episodes, my friend. Well done. Yeah,
it's like a warm hug for the Xbox community.
Yeah, exactly.
That means a lot, because there's a lot of great shows out there. There's a lot of shows that don't necessarily share love of gaming, and they only focus on just love of Xbox, and that's not how I try to be either. So it means a lot when good people listen and good people enjoy. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
So speaking of people that listen, though, is we have one of these questions here, but with your day job, do you find that people in the daytime, daywalkers, we'll call them, do you find people in the regular day-to-day are listening to Xbox Expansion Pass? Do you find that you're getting some people that you regularly encounter and interact with on the daily from work or anything like that are listening?
You dance around their description. So I'm a teacher by day, to any listener that does not know. I teach middle school very proudly. I love and adore my students for sure. I do not think any of my students really listen. Every year, one or two kids will say, "Hey, I found your podcast." And I'm always like, "That's awesome. That's great. I hope you like it." But in reality, most middle schoolers are not especially interested in hearing me just talk analytically about video games or interview developers of twin stick shooters or whatever it is that isn't their game. It's, in my experience, most middle schoolers that I teach and work with, they're into what is popular, and niche games or niche topics aren't really their bread and butter. And they're also very visual. So hearing and listening to somebody speak about it isn't something that they're too keen on per se. Not to mention, I'm also the guy that they have to listen to all day.
I was going to say, they're with you for 6 to 8 hours a day.
Very good point.
Like, come and listen to me some more. Well, okay. To be fair, how am I supposed to frame that question differently? I dance around it, because am I supposed to come out and say, "Hey, so do you get a lot of 10-year-olds listening to your podcast there?" Huh?
They're 12 this year.
Oh, that's not better. I don't know if that's better or worse.
Not really. Really, truly not really. And I take no offense to it, but I've had one or two coworkers that have checked it out and enjoy it here and there. I try to keep in mind that people could listen, which is especially difficult on a different show that I'm on, Cast Co-op, because Mr. Badbit's there, and that is always a trip. but a good time for sure. I try to keep in mind that they might listen, but I also try to be the same guy that they hear talk to them about Edgar Allan Poe or whatever stories we're reading at the time, because it to me, it's the same thing. It's the same skill set: discussing, listening, analyzing, and enjoying all the while. And so we talk about games all the time in my classroom, all the time. I use games to teach any number of plot devices because I teach English. So I teach English and language and character development, and I often use games to go along with that. And that is really fun when I get to do that.
What is
how was my grammar in my email, by the way? So like that scares me when you say, I'm like, did I proofread that? Did I proofread that?
I've gotten so used to understanding what people mean, I don't even notice anymore. And your grammar was fantastic. Also, more amusingly, I was a professional writer for a good while as a journalist, and I don't know what a participle is or a lot of these grammatical descriptors are. Nor do most people our generation, but I do know what's right and wrong. And it's funny how that skill set plays out. You keep what you need, and then you lose kind of the other stuff that you don't need. And so I often have to refresh myself on grammar and whatnot, much to my own chagrin.
So as a parent, thank you for doing what you do, because you take our child for the majority of the day.
Yeah.
And we just get to like a little thing in the morning, a little thing at the end of the day. And you have to do and mold minds day in, day out. So that leads into my question. What do you think is probably the biggest misconception? Because I'm not going to lie, the amount of respect I gained for teachers since I have a kid that goes to school is like it climbs the chart every day. And I have a couple friends that are teachers. And before I was like, oh, they're just teachers. And now I'm like, oh my God, like you do so much. So what do you think is probably the biggest misconception out there
about being a teacher?
Yeah.
Oh,
besides you get the summer off thing, because I know that's not real. So
it is not real.
No.
I think the biggest misconception is that, oh man, this is a tough one. It depends on where you are. As I teach in Southern United States in North Carolina, there's a really big misconception about how much work we actually do and what our responsibilities are. Moreover, we're often pinned between a rock and a hard place because there are laws that we have to follow, rules that we have to follow. We make very few of the decisions that go into some of the educational mandates. By the same token, I have clout. I've been doing this for over 10 years now. And so I can actively push back on certain things that I disagree with, whereas first-year teachers, at least in my state, have absolutely no rights whatsoever. They can be removed on the spot. They're paid something like $35,000 a year, which with our cost of living is very, very low. Even with our low cost of living where I am, it's rough. So there's a lot of pressure that's constantly put on educators from the education, from like school boards and politics and whatnot, but from parental views, where you have a whole lot of different political views on the parent side, and then just us trying to teach whatever content it is we're trying to teach. And it's interesting to navigate. And I don't encourage anybody to go into teaching unless you have a stable financial situation, because it's not beneficial. And it's really hard to make ends meet. I was on ramen for a long time until my wife and I got together and we were able to kind of cohabitate and combine funds. But that said, it's the most rewarding job in the world for me. And I would never want to do anything else. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's the best.
Yeah, we have my whole family's, they're all teachers and extended family too. So like we've lived and breathed it. And even my dad, who was very deep in the education system, like for his role, even when I was going through university, it was, do I get into teaching? Because it was pretty much that was the direction I was heading into. And the way it still is today out here in like Toronto and Canada, he was even like, you will not work full time for 5 years. He's like, you will not get a permanent full-time role for at least 5 years. And he goes, and that's with me pulling for you. So it's a tough role, even as you're in there for supply teaching or you are permanent full-time. And working out, like it's still similar, Luke, where even here you're starting very low on the pay scale. and for first year teachers, and having to get into 10 years, 15 years of teaching to finally get to kind of, where, like you say, you got some ability to push back. And I do think too, I agree with you that for a lot of us, like Court and I both have very young kids, and Court, I'm with you too. When you don't have the kids in school and you're removed from it for years and years, you hear things, you kind of through the grapevines of what's going on, and you kind of get your opinions, or you feel like, oh, they should do this or they should do that. And then you have kids and you see it firsthand or you experience it, and you're like, yeah, no, it's not the teachers that are trying to do this or that. They are genuinely doing everything they can, and they're keeping your kids alive in our case.
Yeah.
So
Seriously.
I'm kind of like, it's like, I kind of think of like the person who's like, well, why is that guy yelling at the server who's coming to hand the dish and say, my food wasn't cooked right? How dare you? It's like, she literally didn't make it. Like she's not the chef. She didn't, or design the menu. Right. Or put the whole ingredients together. It's somebody else.
Yeah. It's weird. And we've kind of gotten culturally as away from thanking those that do good things for us and for our society, as we kind of encompass and try to protect ourselves. It seems that we have removed the ability for the village to raise the child. And it's odd that as we get away from that, it's no surprise, I suppose, that children suffer as a result of it. But yeah, the amount of times a day I say the words, pull up your mask, put on your mask, pull up your mask and keep your mask on is just absurd, because we have so many misconceptions around here about it. But yeah. So
my 5-year-old has no problem wearing a mask.
Same.
So weird.
Yeah, it's funny that the little kids, when all of this happened, it's funny, Court. Like, the little ones were like, okay, we got to wear a mask if we're going to go to Walmart. Okay.
All right.
And then the older gentleman, older than us, is having quite a tantrum about the mask wearing. Whatever. That's a whole other podcast, I think. But Court, I did want to ask Luke, goes to circle back to about when he is teaching. And Luke, you're with middle school kids, and you said you often use video games or use gaming, all of that to help with their development or the topic itself. What are they playing right now? What is the game? What's the scuttlebutt? What are they doing? What are they playing?
Hip?
What's hip? Thank you, Dad. What's hip right now? Is it still the Fortnite?
It's not Fortnite.
Is it Apex, the Legends? What is it?
Apex and 2K are the two most popular with the demographic I'm working with in my anecdotal experience. Then Warzone, then Fortnite. Fortnite was the jam a year and a half ago. And Apex has taken over that space, at least in the circles that I travel. And as the guy with a Halo Infinite poster on the wall in his classroom,
yeah, you do.
I'm always like, you guys, check it out. Come on. And
it's free.
Yeah, there's gradually Halo stuff happening. And I have one student right now who is my spirit child. And he plays Master Chief Collection and Halo 5 and Halo Wars. He's my boy right now. But
he's getting straight A's.
He gets his paper and he's like,
oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I had another kid make me pumpkin spice chocolate chip bread. I mean, yeah, I'm all for bribery. Okay. And she also is getting an A. But yeah, I have Halo stuff all through my classroom, and Titanfall and a few other things, because I want it to be a fun and festive place. Like I have LED lights up there.
Wow, it's like a streamer.
My classroom is way.
You just turned it into a Twitch stream. That's all you did,
basically, and that's what they love. It's funny, and they can pick the light color on the day and stuff, and it's funny. They love that. They love that stuff. But I'm as an avid gamer, it's funny to hear them talk about things, because they'll talk about 2K, and I'm like, really? But you know that they do this practice and that, and they're like, no, it's fine. Okay. Like, they have State Farm in there. They're like, yeah, we love Jake from State Farm. I'm like, what? Okay.
It's like every time you see like Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty so high up, like every time, and you're like, but they haven't made a new game. They're just making this what? Come on.
Here's your trilogy.
Now the trade-off is we keep buying remasters. So,
and we're about to buy another one, right? So,
well, I'll say this. You guys are right. I went out this weekend, and it was very much a Mario weekend, because I got in trouble, but I also had a great time because I took my son out and we went to Toys R Us. He could not decide on a toy. He wanted a toy. up and down the aisles. He's getting a little bit older. He's in this in-between stage of like nothing's clicking. I could see it in his eyes. I was like, it's not there. I said, let's go to GameStop. So I took him in and his eyes lit up. He's been in there before, but he was just like, oh, there's Mario toys. There's games. And I was like, what do you want to get? And I kind of went nuts for him, Court, and I got Super Mario 3D World and I've owned it. Like I've had it on Wii U, but he's never played it, obviously. He's played Odyssey.
Amazing, though.
Put it back in, man. It's so much fun. And it's blown him up to be this massive fan of Mario because his first real exposure to it was Odyssey. But yeah, we're like rebuying games. Well, I'm the problem because
rebuying games, that's Nintendo's forte. Like Nintendo invented, like everybody's like, oh, the remasters.
$90.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like Nintendo's been like, we've been doing that for years. Everybody's just catching up now. Like Sony calls them director's cuts, HD remakes on the Xbox side, but Nintendo's just like, we don't even have to call it anything. We just say, hey, remember that game from 10 years ago? We're just going to bring it back out and we're just going to call it the same thing. We're not even going to do anything else. We're just going to put it on this console. And you're going to give me $90.
I got Bowser's Fury with it, so eat dirt. I got it. That's good.
I got my Super Nintendo Mini. Switch is just not going to get me. It's just not going to happen.
It has been weird because as Metroid Dread has just come out and is getting rave reviews, I absolutely love Metroid as a series. It is my favorite Nintendo series. I love it. And after being primarily an Xbox gamer, I mean, I do play my PlayStation 5 and I do enjoy games on all platforms, but primarily Xbox. It's very difficult for me to go and even want to buy Metroid Dread, even though I'm dying to play it, because I missed Metroid 2 Samus Returns because it was on 2DS, 3DS. I never had that system and I refused to buy it. And then after being on Xbox for so long, where all the games from any franchise are just there, you can play through them thanks to back compat and other methods. To know that Nintendo has those ROMs ready to go. I used to have them on Virtual Console, used to have them on my Wii U. And now with my Switch, the latest and greatest Nintendo console, short of the OLED, I can only play 1 or 2 Metroid games versus all of them. It actually keeps me from buying, because if they had all of the 2Ds available and the primes there, I mean, I would shell out so much money. I would go get that OLED version, even though it's about 4 or 5, 10 years late, because I love my Vita. And my Vita had an OLED and Bluetooth.
Same. Yeah.
But you got the Bluetooth update on the Switch. That was game changer, Luke.
I don't understand why we as community continue to reward Nintendo. That said,
nostalgia. It's it every time.
I agree with you. I agree with you, but I also don't understand it, even if I know it. You know what I mean? It's like, I know in my heart why. I agree with you, nostalgia, but in my head, I'm like, this is baffling how poorly they treat our dollar. Meanwhile, I'm playing Alan Wake, which is a fantastic remaster. $30 American.
Yeah, it's 40. I think it's $50 here, but I am going to get it. But I definitely am going to wait for a sale, but I do want to play it because I never finished it on the 360 and it looks beautiful and I want to try it. But like with the Nintendo, it's like, I grew up, my first console was the NES. Like, I was the generation that got the first console. The NES came out when I was like 8 years old. It was like the thing. And like, Nintendo gets you with the nostalgia, and they always like, oh, it's a console for families. And no, I'm like, no, it's a console for the parents to play their games again and tell their kids that's why it's for them when it's really for them. I'm like, it's to relive the joy you had of playing the NES and the Super Nintendo. That's what it's for. There's a reason Mario keeps coming out, because Nintendo's like, we got you. Like, they just look at it, they're like, hey, large income, 40-year-olds. We know you got the money. Guess what? Yeah. Mario, go buy it. Go buy that game for your kid. Say it's for your kid. Come on. You'll feel good about it.
So I got to look in the car. I got the look.
You just did it. You did it today. You were like,
just did it. I got back in the car. I said, I went in with the kid. I said, wait here. We went in for 10 minutes. I came back with a pack. I was the best dad, by the way, because I got him a pack of Mario characters, of all the figures. So he got Mario and Cappy and a bunch of other ones that came in the pack. He got Super Mario 3D World, and because they were pretty much bust, I got him new Joy-Cons.
Hold on. And so you get to play that game too, right?
1,000%, because it's 4-player.
100%. Yeah, there you go. It's family fun, right?
Yeah.
There you go. Nintendo. But remember, Nintendo is an amazing company. I'm the one who found that Super Mario comic over the weekend, and I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And they make no qualms about it. They're like, we're not a video game company. We're a toy company. And if you grew up in the 80s, you know what happens to toy companies. They kill off your favorite character and bring them back later just so you can buy the toy again. That's what they do.
Transformers.
And Nintendo's the best at it. They really are. They're just really good at it. But this is an Xbox show. So I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite thing, Luke, about the Xbox community? Because as myself, I find it to be, like PlayStation's got a community, which is very heated sometimes lately. I find the Xbox community just more positive, if that makes sense. But what is your favorite thing about the Xbox community?
I don't know that they're more positive. I know I do a lot of maintenance on my social media to mute and block fans of fanboys, I suppose, diehards of either system that evangelize their system while not holding their system of choice to the same standards. So when I think about the Xbox community specifically, it's hard to describe the community overall because I tend to navigate and curate my own audience and my own socials pretty heavily to make sure that I'm not in a negative space. I really enjoy, I think, the appreciation that a lot of Xbox gamers currently have for legacy. And that's something that I think PlayStation and Nintendo, despite having a stronger legacy of titles, like first-party legacy titles, they don't get nearly the fine treatment that Microsoft tends to give their franchises. Master Chief Collection being a good example of that, but back compat and some of the upgrades that you get by way of, Enhanced for X and a lot of the other legacy titles that Microsoft has built into their program forward compatibility along with back compat. So there's an appreciation amongst, I think, a lot of Xbox gamers for their legacy, despite not having some of the IP that PlayStation or PlayStation or Nintendo have to their credit. I really enjoy those that take the time to interact with me in social spaces for holding Xbox accountable and doing so with positivity. And I would say the word fairness, but nothing's fair in the world of business and bias. That said, I just really appreciate how hard Microsoft as a company has worked to repair some of the missteps that they've taken. I think about Sea of Thieves. I think about State of Decay 2, two games that launched in, I would argue, the darkest of the Xbox One phase. And now if you look at those two now, it's just incredible to see where Sea of Thieves is, 20 million player mark at this point. And State of Decay 2 is in its most playable, most beautiful state it's ever been. You could argue the same for Master Chief Collection as well, which absolutely got the fine treatment there. And they've been working hard as they acquire and build new games going forward. It's just a positive vibe. It's nice to see wins happening for the community, and people seem to be rallying and celebrating that. And I celebrate alongside them because there's a lot to enjoy. And this is a big year for Xbox. For all the development that's been going on amid a pandemic, we're going to now see the fruits of a lot of the labors that have taken place over the last 4 years. And in particular, the last 1 year with Infinite being delayed, we're now going to see whether or not that truly paid off. And all signs point to yes, because that Halo Infinite flight, whew, boys, that was something special.
Now, do you think that could be something to do with the new direction? Because we've all heard the rumors of what happened behind the scenes when the launch of the Xbox One. And then Phil Spencer came in, and Phil Spencer, it's almost like they were like, hey, like me, even as a person at the time, I was on the PlayStation 4, and moved from Xbox 360 to the PlayStation. Because of the Xbox launch. And then you got a guy like Phil, and you're like, oh my God, that's a guy like me that's now in charge, and he's doing things that I like. Mm-hmm. Like, it's almost like someone from the community is in charge.
Well, without a doubt, they had the wrong people in charge leading up to the Xbox One launch. Everywhere from the Xbox 360 shift away from having a whole lot of exclusive third-party titles to the Kinect, which was chasing a trend in what the Wii was doing, to the launch of the Xbox One. And it's overpriced console, underpowered console, mandated Connect use. It didn't feel like it was targeting gamers. It felt like it was targeting entertainment and not doing so at a level that gamers could respect. And the new direction that Phil Spencer represented is absolutely a win and a positive, and that's why we see what we see. But we tend to often evangelize Phil Spencer, the man, specifically, as opposed to the era that he brought in. And he is the first person to consistently say over the last 5 years that it's all about the team. It's all about the team that he's working with, the team that he's brought in, the team that he's working with, the team that he's brought in. And amidst that narrative, along with a lot of the social narratives that Microsoft is pushing out, it raised my eyebrows the first time I heard them say blacks in gaming. And then I was like, what? And that threw me off. And then when I read about the program that they were trying to do, and really what they wanted was more people of color developing games. And then they did the same thing for women in gaming. And then they did more with LGBTQ+. And seeing these initiatives go on to coincide with a lot of their hardware stuff, the acquisitions of studios, and Phil's consistent messaging of the team, it felt like they were building pillars of positive culture throughout the Xbox pantheon. So now when I see major acquisitions by way of Bethesda, or I hear about bigger companies or bigger games being made, there is a new level of optimism that I wouldn't have had it been a Mattrick era or Mattrick-like experience. And again, Mattrick is a symptom of a bigger problem. Spencer seems to be identified as the solution to the problem, but it's the people that he's surrounded himself with. All great leaders surround themselves with people that help them be great, that augment their strengths and augment their weaknesses and enhance their strengths. And I think that Spencer's era, Microsoft has done this, and he's whispering in the ear of Satya Nadella, who seems to be very supportive. And when you have a wallet and you have positive culture, those are two things that make way for some positive gaming experiences for consumers. And it feels to me that Microsoft at the moment really respects my dollar. They respect my time, and they're giving me a lot of choice: where to play, what to play, when I want to play, who I want to play with. A pillar being crossplay as an example. And that to me is the biggest benefit to our community and to gaming. And I really hope we see, to go back to your community question, this idea of we can play with anyone no matter what their system, enjoy the games we want to play. Those exclusives are going to be exclusive, but we respect gamers everywhere. I really like that. That's a positive, feel-good vibe for me. Those are the people I want to sit around a campfire with, share stories. Those are, as a host of an Xbox podcast, the people that I dream about interviewing, not in a fluff interview. I don't want to talk to Major Nelson and for 5 minutes about the puff piece ideas, but I would really love to just pick their brain and know, like, what have you learned in your times? And I would love to do that with a lot of those people. Chief among them, Sarah Bond. I really want to talk to Sarah Bond. I got tangential there. I'm sorry.
No.
Hey, no, that's exactly what we want. We want to have one of the things we want to do here on Assemble XP is just have the deeper conversation. We could sit here and talk about what's coming to Game Pass, but Matt and I do that on the video side. So when we're here on the podcast, we want to have the larger conversation. And Matt and I always say that one of the points you made about they're respecting your money. One of the reasons I still have a PlayStation 5, but I'm gaming more on Xbox because I feel they're respecting, as a parent, my value. I'm getting more value out of it. I'm feeling more inclined to give them my money and do more on the Xbox side because they are giving me better value in return. That's the way I look at it. It's just it's one of those things where if anybody says to me right now, "Hey, Court, what console should I get?" 9 times out of 10, if they're not heavy into games, I say the Xbox Series S. I'm like, I don't even think twice. I have it. I have that, and I have an X, but I think the S is a fantastic console. And I always use the piece of something you were testing out right before. I was like, hey, you can play an Xbox game everywhere. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You can play it on your tablet. You can play it on your phone. You can play it everywhere. And you're soon going to be able to, like, you go on vacation, you're going to be able to just bring a controller, and the TV in your hotel is just going to have the app, and boom, you sign in, you're playing your Xbox.
Right.
That's the way it's going to be.
Isn't it a big shift too, Luke, of like where you say like the Don Mattrick era compared to now, how during that time of like Xbox One, especially, there was no signs, at least from where I was sitting, there was no signs of community, of engagement. It felt very, very much more on the corporate traditional side of consoles, like launching and, just their big AAA games and really like the memes of Xbox TV, Connect, like you said, try and connect twice from the 360 era to one. And like you said, trying to grab onto what Nintendo was doing at that time. I just think it's interesting to watch how things have really drastically changed with Phil Spencer's team. And you make the good point of Phil Spencer always talking about the team at Xbox, everyone that he's surrounding himself with, and that he can go out there and be kind of the face, the poster of what they're driving at. I just think it's interesting to think back to when that Xbox One is revealed and kind of going, it didn't land, and we know that, and I don't want to get into what was, but just difference in an era of where they came and seeing how things are changing between the path of Game Pass and where that seems to be going, where the conversation is very much around Game Pass as the thing, less to do with the consoles. Like we were just talking before the show about xCloud and being able to play literally on your tablet and just plug in your controller and boom, we're good to go. Let's play Avengers. Being able
Xbox will be an app. It's just an app.
It's just an app. And even Phil Spencer gets away from talking about the consoles when we look at things like TGS or any of the events happening. There's little mention. It used to be years ago, I think, of just like, ooh, are they going to drop like an updated version of the console? What are we going to see for the console side? There's no conversation around that. It's just about, here's how, what you guys are saying. Here's how we're going to let you play more inclusive with other players across whatever. And that's the update. It's less to do with the traditional piece.
When the Xbox 360 was fading down and PlayStation 3s were really on a good roll, and then leading into the Xbox One PS4 generation, it felt to me like Microsoft did not have a unified direction, and that Xbox specifically did not have a unified direction. I think that's the biggest difference between the old era and where we are now. It feels to me that Microsoft has a plan for 1 year out, 3 years out, 5 and 10, and even looking to 15. Whereas when the Xbox One came out, it was underpowered as it launched, and it lacked a direction. There were a few games that had potential, and a lot that fell way short. I mean, you can even look to the marketing of Halo 5. The marketing of Halo 5 didn't match the game at all. It was fantastic marketing. It was so good, this idea of Locke versus Chief. Then you play the game and it's nothing like it. And while that has happened in gaming before, that showed me that there were a lot of people with their hands in the pot, and they were not in agreement for the direction that they were going to go. And Microsoft has said many times that they will not mandate certain things of their studios. They will not say you need to include this feature or you need to work on this franchise. It has to be this way. They will allow them to make the game they want to make. And it is in that way that I think this new era is likely to bring about the best games we've had in Xbox history thus far. And while that sounds inflammatory to some people or hyperbolic to others, I think when you give creators a variety and diversity in who they are and who they can be, when you allow them to the time to make the games that they want to truly make, most recently evident by the Halo Infinite delay, they had a shift in leadership to bring people in. That shift in leadership took place well before we actually heard about it, which meant they were already in motions and in agreement with things. And they allowed their teams to build the way that they would like to build. Ninja Theory being another example. Hellblade 2 could have been rushed. We could be playing Hellblade 2 this holiday. But is that the game Ninja Theory truly wanted to make? And the answer is no. They're letting these teams do what they want to do. These studios rather, have multiple teams and work at different phases. They allowed Bleeding Edge to come out because Ninja Theory wanted that to happen, right? Bleeding Edge was the most forgettable game I think I've played on the Xbox platform. And I say that not intending to be rude or cruel to the people that worked on it, but it just didn't work out for them, right? They had ideas that didn't work. Microsoft let it go. They said, do your thing, make the games you want to make. And I appreciate that. And I think that paves the way for positive culture. And in having positive and diverse culture of people making games, we're likely to see new things coming down the road that are well beyond what we've gotten from Microsoft in years past. We have not gotten a Last of Us or a God of War or Ghost of Tsushima. quality game from Microsoft. We've gotten really quality games and really great experiences, but they're not the same single player, third person narrative based stuff. And they are poised now to bring those over the next 5 years in a way that we've not seen them be ready to do really in their history. I mean, the Gears and Halo heyday has been long gone. Gears 5 is incredible, but the popularity, the best game in the Gears series came when Gears was at its least popular time, you know? And so there's interesting things that you can track on that. Xbox is ready for fresh and new, and somehow Halo manages to be new with its new flight. I don't think Forza Horizon is going to be new or blow anybody's socks off in terms of gameplay, but it's going to serve the crowd that's in there. They're all going to be checking it out. We're all going to be in awe of it. It's going to be another quality title. But it's when the stuff that's the IP that's fresh that hits in that I think our eyebrows will raise in a way that they haven't raised for a very long time.
And I think that Game Pass is giving people that freedom. Court and I talk about this too a lot of like, we get to try games like Hades, for example, is a game that for us is not in our wheelhouse traditionally for games that we want to dabble in, because maybe it just doesn't vibe with us. But I just think across the spectrum, what it allows us to do is to hit that download button and be like, yeah, I'll give this a shot for 2-3 hours versus even a few years ago into the last generation. I know for me, I'd have PlayStation Plus and I might download an indie game if it's there for the month, but I'm not necessarily going to go out of my way to download and play this thing or buy this thing for $20-$30. Even if I hear the reviews have to be like amazing or it's got to click with me or I think it does. You're kind of just going on a whim versus I love where they are right now of being able to download anything and everything so I can get more exposure to see if like this genre clicks, so I can actually get just more exposure to bigger games and different games. And I think too with Halo Infinite, I think that it's going to be very interesting because you do have a new generation of players coming in and a new generation of players coming into the Xbox platform to Game Pass that maybe they wouldn't play Halo and they're playing, like we said, Apex and they're playing Fortnite and they've seen Halo. They maybe played Master Chief Collection like once or a different one or Halo 5, maybe. But now they have an opportunity to download it and it's free. And they're not having to go out and say, I got to drop 60, 80, $100 to get the latest Halo game. And I don't really know what I'm getting into because we've all played them. But, and even like Court, you say like you're going back and you're replaying to go and catch up and get through all the lore and the story now. I just think it's interesting for Xbox to be in a spot where they're going to expose an entire new generation through Game Pass and it will become almost the norm. But my end of my rant is that I think it's cool that they're allowing people to get more exposure to different games.
But I think they're also with the indie piece, they're letting studios become part of the zeitgeist. Like you have a game like the Artful Escape that I 100% would not have purchased. And it's one of my favorite games that I played this year. I still go back just to like take screenshots because it's just so cool to run through and have your guitar playing and like the background changes as you're playing the guitar. And I love the story. I'm a music snob and a music buff. So everything about that game was amazing to me. I wouldn't say, it's game of the year, but I had such a great experience with it. So there's all those games. So like the next time that they bring out a game from the developer, I'm going to be like, you know what? I'm going to give it a chance no matter what.
Well, sorry,
and I'm also on the piece of like what they're doing. Like when they brought in Square Enix to help with the Perfect Dark game, I was excited. I was like, wait a minute, they made Tomb Raider. I love Tomb Raider. I'm like, are they going to be making, like you alluded to it, Luke, they're going to be making these games that could possibly be your Uncharted's, and I think Perfect Dark might be that game when it drops. Like I think people looked at it. Some people saw the whole Square Enix thing as that it's a question mark. Who knows who does this? But Square Enix makes some phenomenal games in the past. And this is Xbox or Microsoft allowing a studio to make a choice and saying, yeah, we're good with it. If this is what you think we need to do to make the game that you want to make, let's do it. And I don't see it being a problem bringing in this studio to make a game that we're all about to play. I think it's a great thing.
Agree.
Like, we're talking about different games with being exposed to different games too, of like, well, different generations can try out something like Halo, or even for me, it's going to be a game like what we were talking about before, and it's on the show notes too, but like Back 4 Blood. That's a game that for me is not necessarily one that I would run out on day one and grab. It looks cool. I played through the beta and I enjoyed myself. But again, I think what Game Pass is doing right, it's allowing players like me to be able to say, yeah, I'm going to try that out. I want to be able to see if this clicks, and maybe it will be something that I want to play more and more with. But speaking of that too, because both of you guys, I wanted to ask, because you've had some time with Back 4 Blood, do you want to give kind of your take on it, Luke? What was your thoughts on it so far, getting into that game?
For Back 4 Blood specifically, the first that I was hesitant because I was not overly thrilled by its beta when it first happened. It caught me at the wrong time. I find that in my age now, if a game doesn't catch me in the right mood, I will sour on it very quickly or be completely disinterested. With Back 4 Blood specifically, it came at a really good time of kind of wrapping up my time with Alan Wake in terms of the review process, and I could slow down and say I know what to handle. I have a handle on what this game is. And in diving into Back 4 Blood, I was immediately taken aback by the sincere quality of the game. Like, you boot it up and everything is very clean. It looks very good. There's a lot of love poured into it. Obviously, it's meant to be a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead. And that's a franchise that I loved, but we've seen a lot of people try to be Left 4 Dead 3 over the past few years, with I think World War Z coming the closest, and World War Z is fantastic if anyone hasn't checked it out. Back 4 Blood feels wonderful. It's a bit overwhelming when you first start with its card systems. There's a lot to consume mentally, but it's very easy to understand. Like, if you were able to if you can get past the menu overload in the first 10 to 15 minutes of the game, then what you have is indeed a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead, and it is wonderful in its own right. The gameplay is smooth as can be. You have a weapon range where you can try out a number of different weapons. You've got all these perk cards that you can explore. The game's director is an evolved version of, and forgive the pun there, an evolved version of
Well
what
played.
you get from the original Left 4 Dead director. And there are tons of details throughout. I really, really like Back 4 Blood. This to me is just an apex in its genre. And I really like a lot of the detail and the cleanliness that I see once I get past that initial overload of menu options, because what those menu options are really bringing is replayability with what the card system can do for you. And really, those are just modifiers. For anyone that's overwhelmed by the idea of a card system, modifiers and perks, that's all it is. And they should have called it that in my mind. A lot of good stuff to be had. Court and I had a chance to play a bit together as well. I should note that the code was provided by the PR company representing Turtle Rock in this case, and WB. But I'm loving this game. I could wax poetic about it, but I feel better if you'd ask me specific questions, because I don't know what to say.
Well, I, for one, had to ask you many questions when we were playing yesterday, because I jumped in and they'd already been progressing. So I had to pick 15 cards at one point, and they were asking what's taking you so long? So then I asked Luke questions to explain the cards, because even myself, when I first started jumping in and playing it, the cards felt like I was like, what are these even for? Like, I understood they were giving me modifiers, but at the same time, I didn't feel like they were doing anything. And then as I was picking them as we were playing last night, I'm like, oh, okay, so that actually is doing something. Okay, fine, fair enough. It was, but one of the things I felt is the attention to detail. Like, this sounds weird, but when the other characters that you're playing with, they get bloodier and bloodier and bloodier and bloodier and bloodier, but so does your gun. And it's just this weirdest thing that your gun is getting blood splatter on it. And I know it sounds gross, but I was shocked that I wasn't losing any frame rate because of how much blood was actually on the screen and how much chaos is going on in front of you. Yet you mentioned it, Luke, it was so still smooth. And the game, this sounds weird to just give it as an analysis, but it's just fun. There's just a lot of fun to it. And I feel like they have another hit on their hands. And I know it's going to be on other consoles, but it feels like the first time I played Sea of Thieves and it finally kicked for me. So when I was playing Sea of Thieves the first couple times, I just didn't get it. And then I got to play with the right group of people, and everybody started teaching me. They were like doing what you guys did last night of, hey, go do this. Hey, go over here. Go do this, do that, do this. And it wasn't like you're being told what to do. You just felt like you're part of a group. Mm-hmm. And this game has a very good thing about the fact that you can say to your buddies, as long as they have an Xbox or a Game Pass, hey, there's this new game we can all play. You don't have to worry, hey, what console are you on? You're just, hey, we can all play this game, and you can have a lot of fun with it. And I think, I really truly feel that this will be the multiplayer game that you'll have the people that are playing Far Cry like right now, like myself. But when this game hits and everybody's playing it, it's going to be that game where your buddy's like, hey, you want to go on and play for a couple hours? You're like, yeah. And you can go on and hit it for a couple hours and not have to worry about too much besides communicating with your friends. There's no in-depth real story. Like there is, but there really isn't. It's more just go out and have fun. Just go out there and release aggression. I don't know. I don't know. There was a scene part in the game that we played last night that I didn't mind dying, and I would replay it over and over again. And I wish I could just pick that level and just play it. It was just so much fun. Like all of us, I think, every time we were like, oh, that song's amazing. Like we just kept talking about this thing, yet there was hordes and hordes of zombies coming in against us. And all we were talking about is how much fun it was to be in this place where they were trying to kill you.
Yeah. There's a jukebox, and that's all we can say.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good old time. Now, I will note, I think what Court and I are getting at in its simplest form, Matt, is that the game is so playable that any qualms that you might have in the initial stages with those menu systems or whatnot,
single
the game
player
is so playable that you're just immediately over it, and it's an absolute blast. Now, what Court was just mentioning was single player, which is up for debate right now as to just what's going to happen with that. But Matt, what would you say if I said you can play this game single player, but you can achieve no achievements and you will see no stat progression, no supply points, which is the in-game currency you gain from playing, and no true replayability elements involved? What would you say if I told you that?
I say nay. Say nay, sir.
Nay, indeed. And that is what the reviewers, the people that got early code, and the people that bought the deluxe and ultimate editions are saying as well. It is an absolute case that is what's happening. You cannot get
achievements.
No, it even comes up with a screen. It pops up when you pick solo. It gives a warning that everything you're about to do is pointless. That's what the warning should say. It goes through and tells you like this won't work. It should just say, hey, don't do this.
None of this matters.
Yeah.
It's very weird. Very strange choice by way of Turtle Walk. And I checked, it was a choice. It is not a bug of any kind, because that can happen sometimes when we get early code, right? Let's check something out. This is not a bug, and it's very odd. They have addressed it on Twitter and said that they are looking into the feedback. They said, we've heard your frustrations about progression in solo mode and are discussing ways to address the issue. I can solve that for you, Turtle Rock. You just let us get achievements and track our stats, because it's the abilities in there. Thank you for your patience and feedback at this time. We'll have more news as we strategize on potential ways to make it happen. I can solve that for you again. Just make it happen. Just make it happen. It's easy.
Flip the switch. Flip the switch.
Yeah, that's it. The other thing that I wanted to note, oh my goodness, it was so much there. Not good about achievements, not good about first player, single player. When the game launches on Game Pass, a lot of gamers will be jumping into it and playing. When you play multiplayer, they monitor your voice to make sure that they're keeping a safe and clean environment. And at first I was a bit skeptical on that. And then it occurred to me that if they're monitoring their game chat only for public mics, I'm fine with it wholeheartedly. It's an effort to remove toxicity, because the game is meant to be so co-op based. And I often don't even play with randoms if I have the option, which this game doesn't seem to be giving me. But they can't monitor your Xbox Live party or anything like that. But it's interesting to note that your in-game mic can be monitored unless you mute everything, and you won't be able to communicate with anybody. So,
which would be hard to play the game.
Right. But that is an effort to reduce toxicity, which back when Left 4 Dead was out there, the old school Xbox Live, you would hear a whole lot of comments about people's mothers and the N-word way too much. So I'm okay with them working on removing toxic, hostile people. But it is an interesting thing to see that warning sign, because it took me aback for a minute and I had to really process my feelings.
I haven't seen that before in a game where it's actually popped up and they're like, hey, we're going to monitor this to be safe. I can't think of another game that's done it.
Sony did it.
I'll DM it to you just so you can see what it looks like. Because I was surprised when I saw it. And so I didn't know how I felt about it. But the more I started to watch other creators, particularly creators of color and in the LGBTQ plus community, comment on it, and I was like, all right, it's cool. I'm down with it. I get it.
Imagine if Call of Duty did it, they would lose half their games. Like no one's playing anymore.
Just gone. Yeah.
And I could see, because like, as someone that was dying a little bit when I was playing with Luke and his friends last night, they could have got really frustrated with me, and they were very nice to me. They were actually lifting me up, going, okay, just go do this. There's ammo. I'd be like, oh, I'm out of ammo. And Luke would be like, oh, it's over there in the corner. Just go over here, because there's a very good ping system. So, yeah, like I said, it reminded me a lot of Sea of Thieves when I first started playing it, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I got on a good crew that taught me and showed me the way and sherped me through. And I felt like it hit for me more last night when I was playing, and I did not want to go to bed, but I knew if I didn't, that I would be a very grumpy person today.
Well, Luke, as we are wrapping things up here, because you got the day job and Court and I have got tryptophan all up in our brains, like a lot. Got nighttime coming. But I did wanted to know what, and I know the answer to this, but what are you most excited for this season that we're in right now? There's going to be one game that is most on your mind, I am guessing. And what is either one title or one element of Xbox that you are excited or looking forward to going into 2022? Because we are getting into the holiday season, but yeah, what's one game that you're most excited for right now? And then, yeah, what is some element or game going into the next year that you're really looking forward to?
Sure. Well, I mean, Halo Infinite is, I think, what you were alluding to.
Shocked.
My
indie title. No
indie, small thing.
Die Hard.
Nothing game.
I collect many a thing about it, and it's a dream to hope to one day get to interview some people within 343 for that one. That said, Halo Infinite being the most anticipated, and if I could give you some outliers for this year, I'd be interested, now that Hot Wheels Unleashed is out and Alan Wake is out, I'm looking forward to now the Guardians of the Galaxy game, which I would not have said a month ago. I mean, I'm a big superhero fan, but I was not thrilled about Guardians of the Galaxy at all. I'm not even a big Guardians fan, but to see a lot of the people that went hands-on with it be so positive, I'm actually now more keen-eyed towards it. And while I do really do love the Avengers game, I'm interested to see some of the stuff they're going to do there. The roadmap's pretty light, so my attention is going to go elsewhere for a couple other games soon. And I think Guardians might fill that void a bit. For next year, easily, without a doubt, my most anticipated is Gotham Knights. I am so stoked for that game. Arkham is my favorite game franchise of any game franchise. I love the Arkham games in a special way. I don't think it's the best franchise ever, but it speaks to me in a way. I love Batman and I love DC a lot. I love DC. Yeah.
We don't like Batman here at all. Like this.
Yeah, I can tell.
Batman. Who's Batman?
There, you know,
I'm not. When I saw the tweets today with the Court of Owls masks, I sent a DM to somebody I know. I was like, I want one, please. What do I have to do? I'll fly to California. Figure it out. Just give me one of these masks.
And if you know that guy, send him my way too, because I'm very excited for that. I will buy the most expensive version of that game, but I'm looking forward to Gotham Knights for sure. Without a doubt, my most anticipated. I don't really know what's on next year's roadmap for Microsoft. I don't think anyone really does in the public space know a lot of what they've got slated for next year proper. And that's kind of been the neat thing to see. We had PlayStation have some good exclusives with Ratchet and Returnal, the beginning of 2021, and then Halo's got Forza and
Xbox.
Xbox has Forza and Halo at the end.
We're tired. It's okay.
I am. And then next year, PlayStation's got Gran Turismo and Horizon. What's Microsoft going to have? And it's going to be curious to see this cadence because apart from Starfield, we don't know much. And Starfield is supposed to really kick off this cadence of releases to come into 2022. I suppose you can count Redfall in there. I'm curious to know how that timeline works out. I don't know if it's going to hold. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Gotham Knights in short. And rest assured, I will be talking about DC Fandom a lot when that thing happens next weekend.
Ooh, I'm so excited for it.
That's awesome. Court, any parting words, my man?
No, I just thank you very much, Luke, for coming on. Greatly appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Please have me back. I would love to be back anytime.
Thanks, Luke.